We often overlook the small stuff, don't we? But think about press fit connectors. These little parts, they seem pretty minor, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're actually, fundamental to so much today. Cars, tech gadgets, you name it. So today, we're really going to get into why these components have such a, well, surprisingly big global footprint.
Exactly. And we're basing this discussion on the Global Press Fit Connector Market Report 2025.
Mm.
It's a really thorough analysis.
Right.
And what's interesting is how it opens up, bigger conversations about tech and manufacturing trends.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty clear. Let's unpack this report. We want to get a real handle on the market size now, where it's headed, what's pushing it forward, and what it means for different industries.
Yeah,
Think of it as your shortcut to getting up to speed on something quite important, even if you hadn't realized it.
sounds good. So we'll start with the basics. What are press fit connectors? Then look at the market numbers, the growth drivers, and how things look region by region.
Perfect. All right, let's get down to it. What exactly are these press fit connectors?
Well, basically, they're a way to make electrical connections without needing solder.
Mm.
You use these specially designed pins
Mhm.
and you press them into plated holes on a circuit board.
No solder. How does that actually hold? It sounds almost, well, too easy.
It works on this principle called interference fit. Essentially, the pin is designed to be just a tiny bit larger than the hole it's going into.
Okay.
So when you press it in, it creates this super tight fit, both mechanically strong and electrically conductive.
Huh.
It's quite clever how that small bit of force makes such a solid connection.
Interesting. So what are the main upsides to this approach, the solderless way?
Well, there are quite a few benefits, actually. A big one is very low electrical resistance. That's really key for, efficiency.
Right.
They're also really durable, and they handle vibration well. So think about environments where things get shaken around.
Makes sense.
Those things together mean you get very reliable, long-lasting connections.
You mentioned a real-world example earlier. Can you give us one, show where they're making a real impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So just this past July, 2024, Smiths Interconnect launched a press-fit version of their compact PCI connectors.
Okay.
And what's really telling is where they're aiming them. Defense, space, aerospace.
Critical applications.
Exactly. It just shows that in situations where failure is absolutely not an option, that slightly higher cost for press fit is, well, negligible compared to the risk. And other industries are noticing that trade-off too.
Defense and space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely highlights their importance. Okay, let's talk numbers. What's the big picture, the global market size?
Okay, so the report estimates the global market for 2025 at USD 10.24 billion.
Wow, 10 billion. That's a lot for something most people probably haven't even heard of.
It really is. It puts the scale into perspective, doesn't it? Even for what seems like a niche component.
And where's it heading? What's the projection?
The forecast shows pretty strong growth. It's expected to hit USD 15.5964 billion by 2033.
15.6 billion.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And the growth rate, is that like a steady thing or a sudden jump?
It's projected at a compound annual growth rate, CAGR, of 5.40% between 2025 and 2033.
5.4%. Okay.
So, yeah, a solid, steady expansion.
Right. A healthy growth rate in a pretty big market.
Yeah.
Now, what's actually driving this growth? What are the key forces behind that expansion?
The report highlights a couple of major drivers. First off, there's this increasing demand for high reliability and specifically for solderless solutions.
That makes sense, especially with aerospace and things like that. But why is solderless becoming more, popular overall?
Well, a couple main reasons. First, you eliminate the potential for soldering defects, things like weak joints or cold solder joints, which can cause failures down the line.
Right.
And second, it's generally better for the environment. It avoids lead, which fits with the whole push towards lead-free electronics.
And which sectors are really pushing for this high reliability, this solderless approach?
It's mainly industries where, a failure could be really serious. So automotive, aerospace, data communication, industrial automation, places like that.
Yeah, you definitely don't want a connection failing in a self-driving car or a complex factory machine.
Precisely.
Didn't the report also mention the energy sector?
Yes, that's another interesting angle. The EU has this initiative, digitalization of the energy system,
Okay.
and it involves huge investments in upgrading electricity grids by 2030. All those upgrades need super reliable interconnects like press fit to keep the grid stable and efficient.
Got it. So high reliability is a huge factor. What's the other main force pushing this market forward?
The other really big one is the growing use of press-fit connectors in automotive electronics.
Ah, okay. Cars these days are basically computers on wheels, right? How does that play in?
Exactly. Modern vehicles are just crammed with electronics. You've got electric powertrains, ADS, that's advanced driver assistance systems.
Right, like emergency braking and lane assist.
Yeah, those. Plus infotainment, complex battery management systems, all needing really robust connections that can handle a tough automotive environment.
And tough means.
Things like constant vibration, big temperature swings, moisture, conditions that press-fit connectors handle really well. They give you that reliable, conductive connection you need.
And I guess the massive shift towards electric vehicles must be a huge part of that.
Oh, absolutely. EVs and hybrids depend heavily on high-power, high-density connections. Think battery packs, charging systems, power electronics.
Hmm.
Press-fit technology is ideal there because it offers low resistance and can handle high currents, which is, well, critical for performance. Things like inverters, onboard chargers, press-fit is key.
Okay, so it sounds like a pretty positive picture overall. Are there any challenges or roadblocks mentioned in the report, things holding back growth?
Yes, there are some potential headwinds. The main one identified is the high initial cost and the tooling involved.
High costs. Really? They seem like such small parts.
Well, the connectors themselves might be small, but actually, using press-fit technology requires specialized equipment. You need precision tooling and really controlled insertion forces to make sure you get that reliable connection. And that upfront investment in equipment can be pretty significant, especially, for smaller companies.
I see. So it's not quite as simple as just snapping them into place.
Not quite, no. And often, applications need customized connectors, which means high-precision manufacturing adding to the cost.
Right.
Plus, the report stresses the need for really thorough design validation, quality control, testing. All that adds up too.
So you're paying upfront for that long-term reliability, but it's a steeper initial investment. Does that affect, say, production volumes?
It can, yeah, because the tooling costs are quite high. It might make low-volume production runs less economical. Generally, it becomes more cost-effective the more you produce.
Okay, so cost hurdles exist. Looking ahead now, what are the key trends shaping the future for press-fit connectors?
Well, as we sort of touched on, the increasing integration into EVs is definitely a major one. That demand in battery management systems, inverters, chargers, power distribution units, it's just going to keep growing.
And the benefits there seem clear. No solder, reliable, low resistance.
Exactly. Plus high current capacity, great mechanical stability, all really vital for the safety and performance of those high voltage EV systems.
Makes sense. What's the other big trend the report highlights?
The other major one is the increasing use of 5G infrastructure and the broader telecommunications sector.
Ah, 5G. With the global rollout, I can see that needing a lot of new hardware. Why are press-fit connectors a good fit there?
Well, 5G networks need interconnects that are super reliable, have low signal loss, and are durable enough for base stations, data centers, fiber optic networks.
Okay.
PressFit can handle the high-frequency signals involved in 5G and also stand up to the environmental stresses these systems face.
So they're good for the speed and the conditions.
Pretty much. And it's not just 5G directly. Think about the growth in cloud computing, the Internet of Things, edge computing, all that drives demand for faster servers, routers, switches.
Right.
And those applications benefit from the signal integrity and the fact that press-fit connections are easier to rework if needed compared to solder.
Okay, that paints a good picture of the global scene and the big trends. Let's maybe zoom in a bit. How do things look region by region?
Sure. So North America currently holds the biggest slice of the pie. For 2025, it's over 37% of global revenue, which is about USD 3.7888 billion.
Okay, the leader for now.
Yeah, but its projected growth, the CAGR from 2025 to 2033, is a bit more moderate at 4.2%.
Which kind of makes sense for a more mature market, I suppose. What's fueling the growth there?
It's really the strength of the automotive, aerospace, telecom, and industrial automation sectors in North America.
Any specific countries driving that?
Well, the U.S. has the lion's share, about USD 2.99 billion in 2025, driven by smart manufacturing and automotive automation. Canada's actually growing a bit faster, 5.0% CAGR, mainly thanks to government incentives pushing EV and hybrid adoption. Mexico's seen moderate growth, around 4.7%.
All right, North America leads steady growth. What about Europe?
Europe's also a major player, holds over 29% of the market in 2025, so that's around USD 2.97 billion. And interestingly, its projected CAGR is the same as North America's, 4.2%.
Similar growth profile then. What's the engine in Europe?
Again, it's largely advancements in automotive and industrial automation. Those are the key drivers.
And within Europe, any standouts?
Germany's a strong market, naturally. About USD 588 million in 2025, growing at 4.4% thanks to its auto industry and, the Industry 4.0 push. The UK is also doing well, 5.0% CAGR, driven by 5G rollout, cloud computing growth, plus automotive and aerospace electronics. And the report breaks down others too. France around $337 million, Italy $242 million, Russia $202 million, Spain $172 million, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, Luxembourg, they all have their own figures and KGRs, mostly in the 3–5% range. The rest of Europe combined is significant too, nearly $1.2 billion.
Got it. So North America and Europe are the big established markets. What about Asia Pacific? You hear so much about tech growth there.
You absolutely do, and the report reflects that. APAC held around 24% share in 2025, roughly USD 2.46 billion. But here's the key thing. It's projected to grow the fastest globally.
How fast?
A CGR of 8.2% from 2025 to 2033.
Wow, 8.2%, that's significantly higher.
It really is. I mean, think about the scale of manufacturing there, plus how quickly they're adopting things like EVs and 5G. It creates this powerful cycle for press fit demand that you don't see quite as strongly in the more mature regions.
Right. What's specifically driving that boom?
It's the strength of their electronics, automotive, and telecom sectors. Plus, you've got major consumer electronics and semiconductor giant space there.
And which countries are leading the charge in APAC?
China's the biggest market there, over $1 billion in 2025, with a strong 7.7% CGR. That's driven by consumer electronics, semiconductors, 5G. But interestingly, India is forecast to have the highest growth rate in the whole region, a really remarkable 10.1% CEGR.
10%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you have Japan, around $354 million. South Korea, $282 million, both with solid growth around 5–6%. Australia, Singapore, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, they're all contributing significantly too, with KDRs ranging from about 6% up to over 9% for Southeast Asia collectively.
That really does paint a picture of a dynamic region. Okay, what about the other parts of the world? South America, Middle East, Africa?
They have smaller shares currently. South America is just over 4% in 2025, about $389 million, going at 5.7%. That's mainly industrial automation, telecom growth. Brazil and Argentina are key there.
Okay.
Middle East is similar, around 4% share, $410 million, but slightly faster growth at 5.9%. That's driven by investments in smart cities and industrial automation. Think Saudi Arabia, UAE, Turkey showing good growth.
Right.
Africa has the smallest share, about 2.2%, $225 million, growing at 5.1%. Key drivers there are expanding telecom networks and electrification projects, particularly in South Africa and Nigeria.
So, summarizing the regions, North America and Europe are large and steady, but Asia Pacific is where the really rapid expansion seems to be happening.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Now, the report also breaks the market down by connector type and by application, right?
Yes, exactly. By type, you've basically got solid press-in and compliant press-in. The report suggests solid press-in is expected to keep the dominant share.
Why solid? What makes them the go-to choice often?
Really comes down to that high reliability and stability. For those critical applications we talked about, automotive, aerospace, industrial, telecom, especially in tough environments, you need that absolutely rock-solid connection.
Makes sense. And the compliant type, where do they fit in?
Compliant press-in connectors are actually seeing rapid growth. They tend to be more cost-effective and offer a bit more flexibility during assembly. So they're really suitable for high-volume electronics manufacturing, where maybe ease of assembly is a bigger factor, and they can help reduce mechanical stress on the circuit board itself.
Okay, got the types. And by application, how does that break down?
Well, the main segments are automotive, data communication, and general electronics. And right now, automotive holds the largest share.
Which lines up with everything we've said about vehicle complexity and EVs. What about datacomms?
The data communication segment is growing really fast. Think about cloud computing, 5G deployment, AI. All that stuff demands reliable, low-resistance, high-density connections in servers, routers, data centers.
It's fascinating how these big tech trends all trickle down and drive demand for these seemingly small components. Now, one more thing, this report was updated to consider the potential impact of those Liberation Day tariffs in 2025. How are they factoring into this market?
Yeah, that's an important layer of complexity. Those tariffs have definitely stirred things up again, trade-wise. We're talking rates from 10% up to 46% on goods from various places, including allies, and even higher for China on some electronics. potentially up to 145%.
Wow, 145%. That must be causing major headaches in the electronic supply chain.
Oh, absolutely. The electronics sector is feeling it significantly, especially given the existing U.S.-China trade situation. It's disrupted those lean, just-in-time supply chains and pushed up component costs. 25% on semiconductors, 20% on lithium-ion batteries, 10–15% on laptops and tablets.
And the knock-on effect, what does that mean down the line?
Well, ultimately, those higher costs tend to get passed on as higher retail prices for you, the consumer, and that can dampen demand. We're seeing pressure on sectors like home automation, computer hardware, even medical devices due to these rising costs and the general uncertainty.
So how are companies trying to navigate this? What are the coping strategies?
A lot of companies are, well, having to rethink their supplier relationships. They're looking hard at shifting sourcing to places with lower or no tariffs. India, Mexico, Vietnam are common examples. Some are even redesigning products to kind of engineer around those high tariff components.
But China's still such a huge player in electronics manufacturing, right? It can't be easy to just switch.
Not at all. Despite the tariffs, China remains a massive exporter of electronics to the U.S. And it's complex because even if a company sources a final component from, say, Vietnam, many of the subparts inside that component might still originate from China. The supply chain is deeply interconnected.
Right. And what about U.S.-based manufacturers? Are they able to easily find alternatives?
Well, U.S. firms, many operating on pretty thin margins already, are seeing their input costs jump significantly, maybe 18–25%. And those alternative manufacturing hubs, the contract manufacturers there, are starting to hit capacity limits as everyone tries to shift production.
So in this kind of choppy environment, how important is market research, like the report we're discussing?
It becomes absolutely critical. I mean, this kind of research gives companies the intel they need to find new suppliers, track cost changes, figure out how to optimize designs around tariffs, forecast demand shifts, and just stay on top of the constantly changing regulations. Things like detailed supplier mapping, cost optimization analysis, they're essential navigation tools right now.
It really underscores how interconnected everything is. Global economics, technology, geopolitics, all affecting something like a press fit connector.
It really does. These small parts are right at the heart of so much modern tech, and their market is just woven into these bigger global forces.
Well, this has been a really thorough exploration into the world of press fit connectors. I think to sum it up, it's clear this is a big market and it's growing steadily. The main push comes from needing reliable solderless connections, especially in booming areas like automotive, particularly EVs and data communications. There are cost challenges, sure, but the big trends towards EVs and advanced networks like 5G offer huge opportunities worldwide. Although, as we just discussed, things like tariffs add a definite layer of complexity to navigate.
That's a great summary. It is quite remarkable, isn't it, how these often unseen components are so vital to the tech we use every day, and how the market reflects these massive global shifts.
Yeah, and it really makes you think, given how crucial these little connectors are and how they're tied into global economics and technology shifts, what other seemingly minor components might be holding similar surprising influence over our future? What other hidden dependencies are built into the technology we take for granted? Something to chew on, definitely.
Absolutely.
So if this has sparked your interest, we definitely encourage you to dig deeper into some of the specific regions or applications we talked about based on what matters most to you. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.